Hello, fellow gardeners, and welcome back to Smart Garden. Today, we're embarking on an exciting journey that will completely transform how you think about growing food. Imagine walking through your garden and discovering an abundance of nutritious crops that sprouted, grew, and thrived entirely on their own. No weeding marathons, no constant watering schedules, no midnight worries about pest infestations. This isn't a fantasy. It's the incredible reality of neglected crops, and by the end of this guide, you'll understand how nature's forgotten bounty could revolutionize your approach to gardening, and perhaps even contribute to feeding communities around the world. The untapped potential of resilient plants. We've been conditioned to believe that successful gardening demands constant attention, expensive inputs, and backbreaking labor. But what if I told you that some of the most productive, nutritious plants on Earth actually prefer to be left alone? These are the neglected crops, resilient survivors that have been quietly thriving in the margins of our agricultural consciousness for centuries. While modern farming focused on a handful of high-maintenance varieties, these remarkable plants continue doing what they do best, growing abundantly with virtually zero intervention. They're drought-tolerant warriors, pest-resistant champions, and soil-building allies all rolled into one. The surprising abundance these plants produce isn't just impressive. It's a game-changer for anyone seeking a more sustainable, less labor-intensive approach to growing food. Whether you're a beginner overwhelmed by the demands of traditional gardening or an experienced grower looking to work smarter instead of harder, these 15 crops are about to become your new best friends. Beyond the garden, there's a whole world of wild edibles and their bounty just waiting to be discovered. So, let's start our exploration with some plants that, honestly, many gardeners have been pulling out and tossing aside for years, completely unaware that they were discarding real nutritional powerhouses. Purslane is perhaps the perfect example of this irony. This succulent ground cover, which is often cursed as a persistent weed, is actually a nutritional superstar. It contains more omega-3 fatty acids than many fish oils, plus vitamins A, C, and E. Purslane thrives in the harshest conditions, blazing heat, poor soil, minimal water, and it reseeds itself effortlessly, year after year. Once it's established in your garden, you'll find it returning reliably, providing tender, lemony leaves that are just perfect for salads, stir-fries, and even smoothies. Similarly, lamb's quarters, which is another plant most gardeners wage war against, has actually been feeding humans since prehistoric times. This vigorous grower outcompetes actual weeds, requires absolutely no care, and produces leaves that contain more iron and protein than cultivated spinach. Our ancestors definitely knew what they were doing when they harvested these plants. They recognized abundance that didn't demand constant tending. Amaranth represents another fascinating example of a crop that kind of straddles the line between cultivated plant and wild edible. While some varieties are intentionally grown, amaranth has such a strong will to survive that it often escapes cultivation and just thrives independently. This ancient grain produces both nutritious leaves and protein-rich seeds, all while demanding far less water than conventional cereals. The plant's deep taproot allows it to access moisture that other crops can't reach, making it incredibly drought-resistant. Once amaranth establishes itself in your garden, it will likely return year after year through self-seeding, creating a renewable food source that requires virtually no input from you. The same resilience applies to African nightshade, a vegetable that thrives in warm climates with minimal pest pressure, producing abundant dark leafy greens that are rich in vitamins and minerals. The self-sufficient staples. Now we move into the realm of perennial crops, the true champions of low-maintenance abundance. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are perhaps the most prolific example of a plant that borders on being unstoppable. Plant a few tubers once, and you'll be harvesting these nutty, potato-like vegetables for decades. They spread enthusiastically through underground runners, tolerate both drought and poor soil, and actually improve soil structure over time. In fact, most gardeners' challenge with sunchokes isn't getting them to grow, it's containing their enthusiasm. A single planting can produce massive harvests year after year, with absolutely zero fertilizer, minimal water, and no pest control whatsoever. Asparagus offers another compelling case for perennial food production. While establishment takes patience, typically 2 to 3 years before significant harvesting begins, once your asparagus bed matures, it will reliably produce delicious spears every spring for 20 years or more. The plants require almost no attention beyond occasional mulching, naturally suppress weeds through their dense root systems, and actually become more productive as they age. Rhubarb follows a similar pattern, establishing strong root systems that allow plants to return vigorously each spring, producing tart stalks perfect for pies and preserves without any coddling from the gardener. These perennial crops form the backbone of food forest systems, layered diverse plantings designed to mimic natural ecosystems while producing abundant food. In such systems, plants work together, creating resilient communities that essentially manage themselves. Nitrogen-fixing legumes feed their neighbors, deep-rooted plants bring up minerals from subsoil, and diverse species confuse pests while attracting beneficial insects. The result is a productive landscape that becomes more fertile and abundant over time, all while requiring less work than a traditional vegetable garden. Unlocking abundance, surprising yields from neglect. The sheer volume of food certain neglected crops produce is nothing short of astonishing. Consider elderberries, which grow as vigorous shrubs that, once established, produce massive clusters of dark, immunity-boosting berries every year without pruning, spraying, or any special care. A single mature elderberry bush can yield 20 to 30 pounds of berries annually, and these plants thrive in conditions ranging from moist bottomlands to dry slopes. Mulberries offer even more dramatic productivity. Mature mulberry trees can produce hundreds of pounds of sweet, nutritious berries each year for decades, feeding both people and wildlife. These trees establish deep root systems that make them virtually drought-proof, and they're so pest-resistant that organic cultivation is essentially the default approach. Ground cherries, also called Cape gooseberries, demonstrate another form of effortless abundance. These low-growing plants produce hundreds of sweet golden fruits wrapped in papery husks, and they're so eager to reproduce that they'll reliably self-seed throughout your garden. Many gardeners discover ground cherries appearing year after year in unexpected places, always producing generously despite receiving no intentional care. The fruits store well, taste delicious fresh, and make exceptional preserves, all from a plant that essentially manages itself. Millets and sorghum represent grain crops that challenge everything we've been told about cereal production. These ancient grains evolved in harsh African climates, developing remarkable drought tolerance and pest resistance. Unlike corn or wheat, which demand consistent moisture and nutrient-rich soil, millets and sorghum produce reliable harvests even in poor conditions with minimal rainfall. They're nutritional powerhouses packed with protein, fiber, and essential minerals, yet they require a fraction of the inputs conventional grains demand. Fonio, another African grain, matures in just 60 to 90 days and grows happily in sandy and fertile soils where other crops would fail miserably. A greener future, your role in the food revolution. The 15 crops we've explored today, from humble purslane to productive sunchokes, from resilient millets to generous mulberries, demonstrate a profound truth. Abundance doesn't require constant intervention. These plants prove that with thoughtful selection, we can create food systems that work with nature rather than against it, producing generous harvests while building soil health, conserving water, and supporting biodiversity. Your journey with neglected crops can start simply. Look around your property or neighborhood with new eyes. That weed might be purslane or lamb's quarters waiting to nourish you. Consider dedicating a corner of your garden to perennials like asparagus or rhubarb that will feed you for decades. Plant a mulberry tree that your grandchildren will harvest from. Experiment with drought-tolerant grains like amaranth or quinoa if you have space. Each small step contributes to a larger transformation in how we think about food production. These resilient crops aren't just interesting curiosities, they're practical solutions to real challenges facing gardeners and farmers worldwide. As climate patterns shift, water becomes scarcer, and we seek more sustainable approaches to feeding ourselves. These neglected champions offer hope and abundance. They remind us that sometimes the best solutions have been here all along, quietly thriving in the margins, waiting for us to notice. If this guide has opened your eyes to new possibilities, please subscribe to Smart Garden so you never miss our explorations of sustainable, low-maintenance growing techniques. Share this video with fellow gardeners who'd appreciate discovering these remarkable crops. Together we can cultivate a future where food production works in harmony with nature, providing abundance without exhaustion. Happy gardening, and here's to letting nature do more of the work.